Happy Tuesday, everyone. You are watching CBC News BC. I'm Jessica Chung here in the Vancouver newsroom. Okay, here's what you need to know today. Now, if you're driving on Highway 99 in Richmond, listen up. Traffic is backed up in the area due to an overpass strike on the highway. Now, here's an image from a traffic camera from Drive BC there. Police say this strike happened at around 9:45 this morning in the southbound lane at the Blundell Road overpass. And the vehicle involved was a commercial tractor trailer carrying lumber. And police do say some of that lumber did fall onto a pilot vehicle that was escorting the tractor trailer, but there were no injuries reported and no visible damage to the overpass. But police will still take a closer look to make sure everything is safe. And meanwhile, the driver of the tractor trailer and the company involved will be investigated. And in Vancouver's downtown east side, a 16-year-old has been arrested for allegedly stabbing a cab driver last night. It happened at around 9:30 near Main and Hastings, and police say an off-duty VPD officer saw the stabbing happen. On-duty officers then responded and arrested the suspect.
Well, it's still under investigation. What I can tell you is that we believe that a cab driver picked up a passenger somewhere in the downtown core and drove that passenger to the area of Main and Hastings. We believe there was some sort of a dispute, possibly involving payment when they arrived at their destination in the downtown east side. And as a result of that dispute, the cab driver was stabbed.
The 59-year-old taxi driver was taken to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries, and police say the teen, who is a Richmond resident, is now in custody for aggravated assault. And with many expecting Prime Minister Mark Carney to call a federal election in the coming days, a new poll from the Angus Reid Institute shows the federal Liberals gaining ground on Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives. But some of that surge is coming at the expense of the federal NDP, which is sitting at 9% support. Now, when asked about strategic voting on the early edition this morning, one former campaign advisor says it's a concern for the party in every election.
The NDP has an opportunity to make a really strong argument to people, particularly here in BC, where there are many, many ridings where it actually comes down to a Conservative MP or an NDP MP. And especially, I think it's 5 seats in Metro Vancouver or the Lower Mainland that are NDP seats right now. If you have a New Democrat MP, then that is a strategic vote to avoid having a Conservative MP and potentially a Conservative government down the road.
Now, a date has not yet been called for the federal election, but Carney has indicated that he would go to the polls soon after taking office. And it's that time of year again. Wildlife Rescue is bringing back its Best Bird competition. And you may remember last year, Anna's hummingbird won that competition. And the organization says this year the field is limited to songbirds.
There are 32 birds in the competition spread over 5 rounds, 5 weeks. So the first round includes all 32 birds, and they compete one-on-one against each other. So in the next round, we'll have 16 birds and so forth.
And you can vote for your favorite bird on the group's website, wildliferescue.ca. And that's it for me. I'm Jessica Chung. You are watching CBC News BC. Stay here, don't go anywhere, because BC Today is up next.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. The Vancouver International Auto Show has removed Tesla, citing safety concerns. The company has faced numerous protests in Canada and beyond because of owner Elon Musk's proximity to U.S. President Donald Trump. And it's been shut out of rebates here in BC. What do you think of the backlash against Tesla? And if you drive one, how are you feeling? And in our second half, Justin McElroy is back. After a year of travel around the world, our municipal affairs reporter is here to share his adventures and take your calls. I'm Dan Burwood, in for Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Thank you for joining us on radio, TV, and on the live stream. You can call us now on our top story. What do you think of the backlash against Tesla? If you drive one, how are you feeling? Our number in Metro Vancouver is 604-669-3733. Across our province, call us at 1-800-825-5950 or hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Please be pulled over or hands-free when you do that, as per usual. Or email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. As we said, the Vancouver International Auto Show says it has now barred Tesla as a participant in this week's event over what it says are safety concerns. The show's organizer says the electric car maker was asked to withdraw because of a, quote, primary concern for the safety of workers, exhibitors, and attendees. The CBC's Mira Baines has more.
The Vancouver International Auto Show has removed U.S. electric car maker Tesla from its event this week.
There will be no corporate Tesla presence at the show.
The event's organizer says the company was given multiple opportunities to withdraw over the last 7 days, then was ultimately dropped.
The political position on this has absolutely no bearing on the decision. This is purely from a safety point for our guests and our attendees.
Tesla's founder, Elon Musk, has been steeped in controversy over concerns of political interference and close ties to U.S. President Donald Trump. Trump recently selected a red Tesla as the electric car company's stock sinks and sales lag. Then a wave of Tesla takedown protests across Canada, the U.S., and parts of Europe. Tesla chargers and showrooms have also been the target of vandalism.
I've been running events for 20 years. Sometimes you got to listen to your gut.
CBC News reached out to Tesla. The company did not respond by deadline. The auto show attracts over 100,000 attendees and promotes itself as one of North America's premier automotive exhibition events. A UBC expert in social movements suggests Musk's company has few options to turn it around.
Those are the two scenarios, right? That sales pick up amongst Trump supporters or that he sells Tesla.
But he suspects the backlash against the electric car maker is just the beginning of a larger movement against Donald Trump.
Tesla is kind of the low-hanging fruit, right? So it's kind of the low-hanging fruit in a mass protest that is going to ramp up against, this kind of whole administration.
This latest flashpoint is also a sign of the breakdown of Canada-U.S. relations and the impact on U.S. brands. Mira Baines, CBC News, Vancouver.
Now, the turbulence for Tesla continues to charge up, if we can say, as the electric vehicle company's stock is now sliding into its 9th straight week of losses amid board members' sell-off, with share prices steadily dropping from $400 in January down to, looking at the stock right now, $240.96 today. The growing Tesla takedown movement, of course, stems against resistance to the company's owner, Elon Musk, and his newfound duties role working for President Donald Trump as the head of the White House's Department of Government Efficiency, which has seen many cuts and closures of federal programs in both the U.S. and abroad. We're asking you, how do you feel about the backlash against Tesla? If you're a Tesla driver, does Musk's controversies change how you feel about your vehicle? Call us now, 1-800-825-5950. In Metro Vancouver, the number is 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone, and email us bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining us today is Bob Porter. He's the president of the Vancouver Electric Vehicle Association and drives a Tesla. Bob, we appreciate you being here today. What's going through your mind when you hear that the Vancouver International Auto Show has said, Tesla, you can't be here?
Well, thanks for having me on the show today, Dan. It is an unfortunate situation, but I totally understand where the association is coming with asking them not to come. it would have been great if Tesla just bowed out, but they're looking at, concerns about public safety, their staff, bad publicity. It could, be very ugly, and, property damage. Who knows what somebody's going to do inside the building or during the test drives. So I understand why they've done this. It's just has to do about safety for everyone involved, and I don't see it as a political move.
Mm-hmm. There have been, and we have a call on the line. You know what? Let's go to that call now. Eric joins us from Nanaimo. Eric, what's going through your mind with what's happening with Tesla?
Hi there. Thank you for taking my call today. I just think it's well-deserved backlash. Elon Musk has repeatedly called for Canada to become the 51st state, along with Donald Trump. Federal conservatives have been busy propping up their politician, their man, who has been endorsed by Elon Musk. Again, I believe it's well-reserved repercussions for his actions.
Okay. We do know, Eric, appreciate the call. We do know that federal conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has tried to distance himself from Elon Musk as well as Donald Trump. And in fact, Donald Trump having comments not to be seen in a positive light about Pierre Poilievre. Back to you, Bob. There have been peaceful protests taking place at Tesla dealerships on the Lower Mainland. But last weekend, we had two of these charging units in Nanaimo, Woodgrove Centre on the island, allegedly tampered with, caught fire. Nanaimo Mounties saying the fire is believed to have been deliberately set arson. What do you make of things escalating that far?
Very unfortunate. I mean, we hate to see something at that level in Canada. We kind of generalize, but we tend to see more of that south of the border. There's been a lot more violent activity in the States towards Tesla. I find it unfortunate. Plus, this is an act of vandalism and then taken to a level of arson, which is it's a felony. Mm-hmm. So these people that are doing that are really putting at risk their future. And just because they're angry, I mean, protesting, fine. Let's keep it peaceful. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind that Tesla owners have nothing to do with the company. They bought a car that they believed in. They probably are happy with it, but they're not necessarily a Elon fan or definitely a Donald Trump fan. Mm. So, I mean, violence and property damage is never usually gets anybody ahead.
Bob, when you get in your Tesla and are driving around these days, given the current atmosphere, do you notice that you're getting different looks? Are you receiving outright hostility? Any different reaction that you get?
I personally haven't seen it, and I don't know of anybody personally that has had an issue. It is a concern, and I can understand. I mean, we just had I actually used to live in London, Ontario, and there's a showroom at the Masonville Mall there, and somebody just set fire to one of their test drive vehicles there on Monday night. So it seems like it is escalating a little bit in Canada, but personally, I haven't had an issue to date. I hope I don't. Mm-hmm. And I hope most other drivers that, people will be reasonable, use a little logic instead of emotion and realize somebody driving a Tesla is not necessarily a Tesla or a fan of what's going on south of the border. Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get to Dawn on the line in just a moment. I want to read an email and get your reaction to this, Bob. Jamie writes us, I live in Richmond. There are Teslas everywhere here. There are also a lot of custom cars. I have started to notice more Teslas lately with custom bodies and Tesla emblems removed from the vehicles. I think custom body shops are going to be even busier disguising Teslas. Have you heard of anything like that, Bob?
I have seen it online. Before I actually saw it, an actual case of somebody doing that to their car, I had joked about putting a Ford decal over the Tesla logo. And then I saw online that somebody had taken all the emblems off and put Audi on, and another one had a Honda. So that might fool a few people. Yeah. But I doubt it's going to fool a lot of people that actually know what a Tesla looks like. Especially Vancouver, there's, it's like almost every fifth car is a Tesla, in the area. So I think most people know what they look like. However, I know there was a case, I think it was in the States or in Europe last week, where somebody was videotaped bashing the heck out of an electric car. And he obviously didn't know because it was an electric Volvo. So maybe not everybody knows what a Tesla looks like.
Yeah, fair point. I do have to ask if I remember right, because I know you've been on with Ian Hannah-Mansing on CBC. Did you put a sticker on your Tesla?
Yes, that seems to have gotten a lot of popularity. Yeah. I can't take full credit for it. I actually bought it. and I bought about 20 of them, and I've given some out, but that's correct. You know, it says I bought this car before Elon went crazy. We've had our Model 3 since when they first came out in 2018. So we've had it for just coming up on 7 years. It's been a great car. We've enjoyed it. The technology is still far advanced from anything else on the road. So it's just really unfortunate that this is where we are. And I tell people, keep in mind that, you know, people bought this car, and I know he was the poster boy for Tesla, and now it's kind of not working out too well for Tesla at this time. But I mean, he's a part owner. He owns 12% of the stock. And there's 150,000 people work for that company that are probably proud of the product they put out and not proud of what's going on. And they're probably ashamed, you know, when they leave work. I was wondering if they take off their Tesla work clothes so they're not being accosted. But the sticker has been popular, and it just brings it up. It's the same thing, like, we're not taking it out on every American we meet. I mean, only 69% of the voter population in the U.S. actually came out and voted. And of that, he only got 48%. So he doesn't have a mandate, like he says. And it's the same thing with American people. And most people probably didn't want him in office. And we're seeing I saw somebody on, I believe it might have been on CBC that you were interviewing, who's an American who had said 2 months ago, we might have buyer's remorse with voting for Trump. And I think we're starting to see that south of the border.
Let's get back to Tesla now and some calls. Don, waiting patiently in Agassiz. Thanks for waiting, Don. What do you think?
I think it's great that people are avoiding Tesla. My neighbor drives to Vancouver every day, back and forth for work, and he has one, but he's parked it because he finds he gets too many waves on the way to work.
Oh, and not in the good way, eh?
That's right.
One-fingered waves, if we will?
Which, hey, that's what they get. I mean, they get enough great deals from us. I heard they get 20% off of our oil. But as the president says, we have nothing they need, which is a joke.
All right, Don, Don, I'm just going to jump to another call. Thanks very much for that. Jessica is joining us from Kelowna. Jessica, I understand you drive a Tesla.
I do. It's my second Tesla I've had, actually. I love the vehicle. It's fantastic. I echo a lot of what Bob said about the technology just being so far advanced from any other car. We also have a GMC electric truck, so we're a full electric household. That it's somewhat tarnished now because of Elon, strictly because of him, because I struggle with what to do with this car. I don't feel proud of it anymore. I used to have a huge sense of pride in this, and it's, do I replace the emblem? Do I get one of these stickers for it? I mean, part of me wants to. Part of me just is really hoping that somehow he's removed from the company and they can move forward, because they've done amazing things to advance electric vehicle technology and adoption. I mean, you look at what they've done with superchargers along the way. It's huge. If this company fails because of backlash, it's ultimately a big setback for those of us who want to support the electric vehicle movement. But yet, would I buy another Tesla right now? Not at the moment.
So you'd want to see
the middle finger wave.
Okay. Well, glad for that.
I have not got that yet, that I've noticed at least.
Well, hopefully you don't. Jessica, if I can, just before you go, we also know that rebates have been scaled back and Tesla barred from electric vehicle rebates here in BC. What do you make of that move by the provincial government?
I mean, there are more electric vehicles that are available aside from Tesla now than before, so maybe not such a big deal in the adoption of them, but that's got to impact a lot of, I mean, if you had one pre-ordered, maybe you'd be canceling it right now and choose for something else. All
right, Jessica, thanks so much for calling from Kelowna. Appreciate that. Bob, what do you think about this idea that people are they're not sure what to do with this car?
Well, first of all, I just want to address what Jessica said. The rebate, the Teslas haven't actually qualified for the BC rebate for a while because BC dropped
for the car
ceiling.
itself, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But for chargers, and if you had a power wall, I feel sorry for one of the companies in Vancouver that has a stockpile of the power walls, which is a battery pack to give you support power if the power goes out. Because he's got those in stock, and now if he wants to install them, there won't be any rebate. And as far as the rebate, the $350 rebate on the Tesla home charger, the level 2 charger, there's 24 other products out there people can buy and put that in. They don't have to buy the Tesla charger. They just use an adapter that comes with a car. So that aspect is not a big issue, but it's just one more step that BC is trying to do to make a point. And it's not major because, they're not selling thousands of chargers. But as to buying a car, I totally understand it. I mean, there's like 60 other electric vehicles on the road right now that you could buy. Well, there's a lot of good products out there. The range is getting better all the time. Pricing is slightly less than a Tesla. So there's very few obstacles for people to get in, for not getting into electric vehicle.
Just before we get to the next calls, Bob, to pick up on another point, something that has been meant that Jessica alluded to was a lot of people bought these cars with the idea that they wanted to cut down their own greenhouse gas emissions. Do you think that's getting lost in this issue?
Yeah, I totally agree. That's always a concern. This kind of puts a black eye on the electric vehicle industry, and not to mention, what's going on south of the border is not going to help adoption. With looks like Donald Trump's going to remove the $7,500 rebate federally from buying an electric vehicle in the U.S., which is probably going to affect manufacturing because if nobody's going to buy them, they want that rebate. And if you're in a state like a red state that probably doesn't have a state rebate, it means it costs more and people might just decide to stick with their gas car. So yeah, it has totally put a black eye on the industry in general.
Let's go to Vivian and Salmon Arm. Vivian, I understand you're a Tesla owner as well. What do you think of what's going on?
Well, it actually makes me sick to my stomach, but I'm hoping the tarnish will wear off eventually. My other car is a VW van, which Volkswagen was Hitler's car, and, quality wins out in the long run. I'm hoping he sells the company, but and I wouldn't buy another one now, but it's the best car on the market. I have 3 friends with non-Tesla EVs. 2 out of 3 of them have had problems. This is the best EV on the market. I bought the bumper sticker. I'm waiting for it in the mail anxiously because I'm hoping my car doesn't get vandalized, but I'm not going to sell it. I'd take a $10,000 to $20,000 hit if I did, and but as I said, I wouldn't buy another one now. It's just tarnished my car.
Vivian, why did you buy a Tesla in the first place?
Well, I wanted an EV, and I got my husband, who's quite a car buff, and he was a race car driver as a youngster, and to do the research. And there's no question this is the best EV in the world. So we bought one. We drove across Canada 2 years ago. You would not want to drive across Canada if you didn't have a Tesla and you'd had a regular EV. There just isn't the infrastructure. And I see that with my non-Tesla EV owners. It's hard for them to charge. To drive to Vancouver, they really have to plan. I don't have to plan. I just get in. It is the best car. But, I feel really ambivalent. It's horrible what's going on in the world today.
Vivian, we appreciate your call. Thanks very much. Bob, I saw you nodding along to some of Vivian's comments there. What do you think of what she said?
Well, it is true. The infrastructure that Tesla's put in, across the world is pretty amazing. I have driven coast to coast. I've driven down through the States, and I've never hit a supercharger yet that wasn't operational. Whereas, by the way, when we bought our Tesla in 2018, this was our 4th electric car. We had bought a Nissan Leaf in 2014. That was a short range, maybe 120K. Back then in 2014, needless to say, there were not too many public chargers. We did most of our charging at home. But with the Tesla, we've driven coast to coast. You just, you pop in your final destination. Now, from Ontario, I put in I'm going to Vancouver with the address, and 30 seconds later, it tells me every charger I'm going to be stopping at on the route. It gives you how long you have to be at each charger. And we've never had an issue with it. And that's why, of course, the other manufacturers, Ford was the first, that they're buying into being able to use the Tesla superchargers. So now everybody's coming on board. And now not just Teslas can use the Tesla chargers, because it's been a much better operational system than some of the other ones that are out there.
We have 2 calls on the line, and we're going to try and squeeze them in. Scott in Victoria, if you can keep it short, what do you think?
I mean, a Tesla right now, the numbers don't lie. It was a number one selling car on the planet about a year ago on the Model Y, outselling Camry and Honda Accord. So, I mean, proof's in the pudding. It's just a fad right now. Give people something to freak out about. I mean, look at all the Jewish people driving Mercedes-Benz, after what the Germans did, right? So, that's 1,000 times more severe. And like the previous caller said, Volkswagen, that was Hitler's car, right? And there's a lot of VWs on the road. So the Tesla thing will be an afterthought in about 3 weeks from now. It'll be next topic. All right.
A lot of history in that call, Scott. Thanks very much. And Kim is in Vancouver. Kim, you've got about 30 seconds. What do you think?
I think I'm also in a Tesla right now, and I would say that Teslas are doing amazing things for the environment, and this protest is sad and ridiculous. And Elon has so many other companies and makes so much money that this is going to go nowhere. And it's exactly what your last caller just said. It'll be an afterthought in 2 weeks, and more Teslas on the road is only good for our planet.
Kim, we appreciate your time. And Bob Porter, thank you so much for joining us from the president of the Vancouver Electric Vehicle Association. Lots to think about, and we appreciate your time and your expertise.
Thanks very much, Dan. And let's hope it is over in 2 weeks.
There we are. And let's hope for no more vandalism or arson. We appreciate everyone's time.
Okay,
and it is 12:28, and this is BC Today. Many of you wrote to us about swimming lessons and whether they ought to be part of the school curriculum. That was our topic yesterday. Linda in Comox says, I grew up in Victoria in the 50s and took my first lessons at Elk Lake. We would take buses from Douglas Street, us kids divided into groups lined along the shore while Marjorie Naismith stood on shore with a megaphone and instructed the leaders from each group. I have no idea how many kids went, but many did learn to swim. Robert says, I'm a retired public school teacher. I'm tired of the phrase, oh, the school should do that. Public schools are currently spinning more plates than a Cirque du Soleil performer. There's a visual. Swimming lessons are important, so the community needs to provide more services. This should not be downloaded on the public schools system. Dita in Merville says, we all needed to pass a swimming test in order to graduate from a liberal arts college in Massachusetts. She didn't say which college, though. Sin Lu wonders, why not use local lakes for swimming lessons? This, for example, there may not be a safe or beginner area. It's also hard to contain a group in an open body of water, but an interesting idea, Sinlu. Allison says, my dad taught me how to float and do basic dog paddle in a lake when I was 7 years old. Then I took Red Cross swimming lessons at age 10 in a chlorinated pool, hated it. That chlorine irritated my skin and I quit. But at age 32, I took up swimming with swim goggles and nose clip, became fully qualified with Royal Life-Saving National Lifeguard and Red Cross swimming instructor, and took up master's swimming, incomplete with competitions. It changed my life, went on to do triathlons in her 40s, and the only woman competing in my age group. Canada, a country of lakes, rivers, and oceans, we need to know how to swim and save people who get trouble into water. We appreciate all of your calls and emails. And to David, I apologize we couldn't get you on the line for the Tesla conversation. Feel free to send us an email, bctoday@cbc.ca. This is BC Today on CBC. We're on Radio 1, CBC Television, and live streaming on our website, cbc.ca/BC, as well as on YouTube at CBC Vancouver and on that free CBC News app. Coming up after the break, he's back, fresh from a year of zipping around the earth on an amazing adventure. The CBC's Justin McElroy is here to share his journey, where he went, what he's learned, and answer your questions. That's after this news update with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. The BC budget shows the impending end of the consumer carbon tax will leave a roughly $1.5 billion hole in the province's revenue streams. The budget shows the province was forecasting revenue of just over $2.5 billion from the tax in this fiscal year, while paying out $995 million in tax credits. Werner Antweiler with UBC's Sauder School of Business says the removal of the tax leaves a significant shortfall. A man is in critical condition after a shooting early this morning in Kelowna. Few details have been released, but it happened at around 3 o'clock around Ellis Street and Leon Avenue. There's no word on a possible motive, but police believe it was an isolated incident. And a 16-year-old has been arrested after allegedly stabbing a cab driver here in Vancouver last night. Police say an off-duty VPD officer witnessed the stabbing near the intersection of Main and Hastings. The 59-year-old driver was treated in hospital for a non-life-threatening injury. And now the forecast. Wind warnings are in place for northern sections of Vancouver Island, Haida Gwaii, and the Central Coast. On the North Coast, rain this afternoon with strong winds and a high of 9 degrees. Highs up to 8 and mainly cloudy in the Peace. In the central interior, a chance of showers or flurries with a high of 7. Highs to 7 degrees with a chance of showers in the West Kootenay, sunshine in the East Kootenay. In the southern interior, a mix of sun and cloud with a chance of showers and a high of 6. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, periods of rain in some areas this afternoon with highs around 9. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zimmerman, and thank you for joining us on CBC Radio 1, television and live streaming on the CBC News app, cbc.ca/BC, and on our CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Our afternoon radio shows have you covered on the top stories in your region. Our friends at On the Coast will be in the thick of it in Metro Vancouver at the Vancouver International Auto Show, covering Tesla's ban at the event, among many other things. Here's what they have coming up.
Dan, hi there. It's Gloria Makarenko here. And this is Wednesday. It's also the start of the Vancouver International Auto Show. And the big news this week, of course, is that Tesla has been removed from that event. So we are going to take you live to the auto show on the show this afternoon. And it is Wednesday, so our weekly money columnist, Bruce Sellery, he's going to join us with his financial advice for the week as well. So I hope you can join us between 3 and 6 for On the Coast.
Cars and money. Good topics, Gloria. Thank you very much. You can hear On the Coast on CBC Radio 1 in Metro Vancouver and anywhere on the CBC News app. You know him as the man who loves, in no particular order, charts, lists, in-depth political analysis, municipal affairs, and a cold beer or two. But Justin McElroy has been a little absent from the CBC airwaves, taking a year off to travel the world, lucky duck. And he's back with photos and memories and stories and some great perspective on what he's learned abroad and how it applies here at home. We want to hear from you. What has traveling taught you, be it across an ocean, within your own province or country? What questions do you have for Justin? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, our number in Metro Vancouver, pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Here he is, in the flesh, back safe and sound. Justin, welcome back.
Thanks, Dan. Good to be back.
How's the readjustment going?
Yeah, mostly wonderful. It's strange, though, right? I've been a journalist for 17 years before I went away for a year, and I've only lived in Victoria and Vancouver my entire life. And so to go away from all that for such a long period of time and then unfreezing my life, building back my local politics brain, just remembering how to do things like this as well. It's been an experience, but it's been a joyful experience. And I like to say that I'm happy I'm back and not having an existential crisis that maybe I should be in Peru or Brazil becoming a woodworker or something other than doing what I love in the city I love, and I'm happy to be back at it.
And you've got that option, of course, if the longing draws you back to Peru. Remind us logistically, as I guess Cole's notes as we can. Yes. Where did you go? How many countries?
I went to 52 countries in 52 weeks. I had never been anywhere outside of Canada and the United States in my life. And so when I decided that I really wanted to do this, I looked at everywhere in the world that I had dreamed of being and thought would be interesting to go to and went, could I string together a trip from all of those things? And somehow, some way, I found a path that worked. And I figured if it was too much, I would learn that pretty quickly and readjust. But luckily, I found that it was a pace that I could do, and I could see all these things, and I just pinch myself every day that I managed to pull it off.
And for anybody who followed Justin's journey on Instagram and on Substack, go have a look of it. Have a look at his stories and his pages. Amazing photos. And we're going to show some of those on the show today. You know what? We already have a call. Let's go to it. Keith in North Vancouver. Keith, if you have a question for Justin, fire away. But what did you want to say?
Yeah, a couple of things. I wish I heard a little bit more Justin speaking before I got on the air, but did you say that you went to 52 countries?
That's correct.
Wow, I wish I followed you on Instagram. First of all, I guess I have to get Instagram to do that, but all good. I was just going to say, I think I've been to personally, I haven't really counted, maybe 35 countries. So, as I like to say, more than others and less than some, because, you meet people that have, been many, many places. But what I've learned with traveling is one thing, I love to go to places where they don't speak the language and things are just really different. I've got some colleagues that are happy going to a resort. I'll probably get to that point at some point in my life, but it just doesn't interest me right now. And everyone travels differently. So one thing I find is that they're seeing things on the resort that I'll never see, and just how people interact. And, maybe you just want to sit and drink for a week and just have food brought to you. But for me personally, I just like to just see different things in a random way kind of thing. And one thing that I've learned is that people, for the most part, are really good. And you do get the anomalies. We've all got the stories of being robbed by a Canadian guy of a camera and some of your money and not your passport by a Canadian guy in Honduras. Those kind of things happen, but most people are good. And also, people just want to smile. If people want to laugh, I guess I have maybe 5 or 6 what I might call travel jokes, essentially, but they translate through so many countries, and it's just such a fun way of interacting that you don't even need language.
Yeah. Keith, we appreciate the call. I'm just going to jump in if that's okay and get Justin to respond. When you're in a country where you don't speak the primary language, how did you get by?
I mean, Google is a wonderful thing. Smartphones. For a lot of questions people had, it's amazing how technology has improved over the last 5-10 years, and the fact that almost everyone has smartphones now. There's a translate app on them. It's audio as well, so you can just speak into it. It meant that there was I could count on one hand the number of times where I had a problem actually getting the service or asking the question that I really required. But when you're in a new place and it's unfamiliar, it's an opportunity to be able to look more deeply and take your time to understand a place and to really dig into how that works in a way that maybe you take for granted when everyone is speaking English around you. And I found it such a wonderful way to broaden my understanding. And similar to what he said, there's a place and time to do resort traveling, but I found it so much more. And I went to a few beaches and relaxed here and there, but I found it so much more stimulating to be in new places and really interact with the city and the people and the things that they do and make me think things that you just don't think about when you live your regular 9-to-5 life.
Before we get to a little more specifics from Justin, Cam is on the phone from Chilliwack. Cam, what's your question?
I just wanted to make a comment on what I've learned through traveling.
Yeah, fire away.
Yeah, I've lived in quite a few countries in the Middle East quite a bit, and also I think reading does the same thing. It kind of makes you realize that people in all places and times are, basically the same desires and fears and wants. And I agree that they want to smile and connect, and I think it really is a way of building connection around the world and peace when we travel and meet people.
Mm-hmm. Appreciate the call, Cam. Thanks very much. Justin nodding along there, that sense. And you talked about this. You were good enough to host two, what would we call them, open houses?
Little slideshows.
There you
back
go.
in the day, someone from the community would go away and come back and share their experiences. And so they were two lovely sold-out shows at the YSL, and we did that.
Yes, we did. Yes. Tanya Fletcher and I got to host each of them, and you got a lot of questions there. One of them being, when you close your eyes now, is there a country or memory that just pops up right away?
Yeah, and a couple of them. Like one was traveling in Norway on a train over the Arctic Circle for 15 hours, and it was the middle of the summer, so it meant that we were sort of chasing the sun as it was setting, and the sunset was going slower and slower and slower. And then once we passed the Arctic Circle, it stopped setting. And we were just in this misty twilight for hours and hours overnight, and that was surreal. And then going to the Lofoten and archipelago north of the Arctic and just seeing these surreal things in the middle of the night was amazing. And then one, I guess it could be seen as a cliche answer, but the pyramids. I stayed in a hotel literally across the street from them for only $40, amazingly, and watching the sunset go down and another day end at this site where human civilization has been a beacon for longer than pretty much anywhere else on Earth. I mean, that's special. And when you're trying to connect with humanity, and I often said the breadth of humanity over the course of this trip, and you get to feel those thoughts and think about how many people have stood in front of this, you just can't but feel overwhelmed in a good way.
Let's go to Jasper in North Vancouver. Jasper, you have some questions for Justin. Fire away.
I do. Hey, thanks very much. I probably haven't traveled enough in my life, spent a lot of time building a career, but as I'm getting close to retirement, it's obviously something I'm thinking more about. So the question I have, and if it's not too gauche, what does something like this cost? And on a related note, what level of accommodation did you strive for? And I guess part of that question is, did you travel alone or with a partner?
Sure. So a lot there, and I'm happy to be fairly transparent about this. I budgeted over the course of an entire year about $100,000. So $2,000 a week when you consider your accommodation, your travel needs, your food, and things that just come up through. I try to also buy one souvenir through each country because I can't help but do a good bit.
Sure can.
And for the most part, that was plausible. In terms of the question of accommodation, part of the way to keep the cost down, especially if you're traveling in Canada, America, Western Europe, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, a few other places, is staying in hostels. And I spent about 80 nights in hostels over the course of this, about 50% of the time in hotels, and then the rest different things. And, I found hostels have really improved in terms of you can get your own little pod and with your own lighting and your own power outlet. And I only had one bad experience out of those 78 days or so pretty good batting average. And when it comes to the language, like I said, it's pretty easy in this day and age to use apps on your phone to get through the questions that you need. And I found in virtually all countries, service people, if you go to hotels or hostels or even restaurants, they know how to accommodate English. It's a lovely privilege to speak English, and
indeed,
the international language of the world in so many ways. And so, I've found that I was able to manage fairly easily.
There we are. Thanks very much for the call, Jasper. Appreciate it. Let's go to Basil in Port Coquitlam. Basil, you're on with Justin, but what has travel taught you?
And thanks, Justin, for coming back to CBC, and welcome back to Vancouver. I was a volunteer helping and running camps for international students from UBC mostly, and some from Simon Fraser. And I found, regardless where their people are from, how much different they look from each of us, how the languages are so different, that everyone is basically the same. We have the same emotions. We care about the same thing, mostly the same values, and with the same hopes for the future. I was wondering if you found that, and how ridiculous it is for us, all this fighting and wars and going on in the world and this hatred, when we're all really much the same, and we should just, it's so much easier to love people. Did you find it was easy to love people and they showed you love? How was your experience?
Yeah, and it's funny because people sometimes would ask us, like, where were the nicest people or the rudest people? But it's people are people. And it's such a joy and blessing to see folks live their lives where you're in a new place and you're just observing and you're seeing people go about their days and be friendly with strangers and try and do the best they can. And, you know, part of what I did during this year as well is go to places that were, you know, war fields or to, you know, a KGB prison or the killing fields of Cambodia or to Auschwitz, and, you know, think about the depths of depravity that happened over the last 100 years and wonder when you're in those places and you're in those countries, going to Bosnia, just where the scars of the war 30 years ago are still very much there. And it breaks your heart to go, how do we allow this to happen? And when you're in a place that has experienced that too fairly recently and see people just live their lives in peace, you know, you don't want to turn to cliches, but you just wonder and despair how come that can't always be the case.
Lynn is joining us from Victoria. Lynn, you have some questions for Justin. Fire away.
Yes. Hi, Justin. My question is, you've been to a number of unusual countries. What was the slowest method of public transportation that you needed to take to get around?
I suppose, you know, the slowest is just on your own 2 feet, and I tend to walk quite a bit. In some countries, you don't have a choice, but I know that, you know, in a couple countries as well, you know, rickshaws were a thing as well, so you're getting cycled around, and when you have 1 or 2 people there as well. In Egypt, I took a couple of horses. In Morocco, I took a camel. So you lean in. What I always said is you lean into what the strengths of the place are. And I love a train, and I love good public transit.
No, you love trains?
Crazy thought. But in some countries, you go, okay, well, they don't really have a good system set up. What do they have set up in a way that gets people from point A to B in an efficient manner? And so you try and do that and enjoy that. And that was just one of like 30,000 different ways that I was able to appreciate this on different levels.
Thank you very much for your call, June. Let's go. Barry has an email question. Justin, what cell plan or plans did you have? Where was service and costs most challenging?
So for getting to, again, traveling today compared to 5-10 years ago, there are apps now. The one that I used was Airlo, where you can basically, you click on it, it shows eSIM options for any country in the world and plans if you want 1, 2, 3, 5 gigs of service and how much it costs, and then it automatically installs on your phone. That being said, some countries, it's cheaper. It's much more cheap to get a physical SIM, and when I knew that I was in a cheaper country and maybe for a longer period of time, I would make sure to find a place where I could get one and plug it in. So that was pretty straightforward as well. And then what was the second part of that question, Dan?
So where was service most challenging?
Oh, yeah. And, you know, you just roll with the punches in terms of, you know, some parts of China, certainly, India, certainly, throughout South America, you just drive another 100 meters and suddenly there's no service. And you don't really know when it will come back because you haven't researched the country in the same way that when you know your own province and you go, oh, it's this stretch of the Coquihalla, right? Well, Merritt's right around the corner. So you just make sure to download at the beginning of the day the things, you know, the maps, the links, the things you really need to know. And then sometimes, even for me, it's good to take the phone away and actually live in the moment.
Very good idea. Elsa is on the line from Vancouver. Elsa, go ahead. You're on with Justin.
Hello. Hi, Justin. I want to find out, did you have any health issues during your travel? Say like headache or tummy ache? How did you deal with those?
How much detail do we want to go into?
Enough for a family-friendly program.
I had some noodles in Busan, Korea before getting on a boat to Japan. And when I arrived in Japan, I felt all the hallmarks of food poisoning. And I had 2 trains and a bus to get me from Fukuoka to an island, Miyajima Island near Hiroshima. And that was not a fun time. And I held things in until I got to the hotel, and then it was a couple of days. Now, what ended up happening for those 2 days is I go, okay, what do I have on my agenda for this? Let's pare this down. I was going to do a lovely 65-kilometer bike ride through an archipelago of small islands in Japan where you have dedicated bike lanes and bridges, and it looked amazing, but I just went, yeah, that seems a little bit difficult. I think rest is a good thing. And one thing that I told myself during this trip a fair bit is, when you're on vacation for a week, you try and make every moment count, and you can sometimes get a little bit annoyed of, oh, that didn't happen. Well, I won't be here again. And I have 365 days. So if I have to take 1 or 2 where things don't quite come together, or I have to spend much of it drinking Pocari Sweat, sort of the ubiquitous Gatorade of Japan, and recover, then that is okay. And so luckily, that was really the only time where I was out of capacity for any significant length of time.
Just before we get to our next call, we have an anonymous email who says, emailer, what is your favorite country and where will you go back?
It's an impossible question, Dan. Like, you just love every place that you get to go, right? And so there's places that stick out a little bit more. Like I talked about Norway and that being amazing. I love Spain. I love tapas. I loved all the different regions of the country. China and India were so fascinating. Japan was so peaceful and so many cool things in big and small communities. New Zealand was so spiritual, and it was the final place that I went, and I went on these amazing Lord of the Ring-esque hike. So I mentioned like 7 there. I know that's not one, but those were places where I definitely go, yeah, I'm lucky to have done this at this stage of my life too, and have a long time to think about where I want to go back, but those are just some of them.
Sheena is joining us from Guadalajara, Mexico. Sheena, thanks for calling. What has travel taught you, and do you have any questions for Justin?
Well, it has taught me an awful lot to keep an open mind, that's for sure, and learning about all the different cultures that I've been able to experience. But one thing that is not brought up often in my conversations with other travelers, they don't know about Servas International. And that's been around since the Second World War. And that's when it started. And you can go to over 100 countries. I also host, being a Servas member. And it's phenomenal because you get to live with real people in the country that you're traveling. And I've got more stories than I can tell you about staying with Servas members across Australia, across Canada, and the United States. But, if people want to look up Servas, SERVAS International, that would be something that I think a lot of people, young and old, would really enjoy.
I see here, Sheena, that it's a nonprofit member group that builds peace and cross-cultural understanding through day visits or overnight homestays. Why did you decide to do it?
Well, I was traveling in Honduras, and I met a Canadian couple, and they turned me on to it. And they said, you have to be interviewed by someone in my home country or wherever you happen to be traveling at the time. So I found the person who was the interviewer when I got back to Vancouver, 20-some years ago, I think I joined. And I've just become a member. So I both host people in my house in Victoria now where I live, and also traveling.
Wonderful. Sheena, we really appreciate your call. I want to squeeze in Mary, who is joining us from Souk. Mary, what are your thoughts about travel, and do you have any questions for Justin?
No, I have some comments. I've traveled extensively. Well, I don't know extensively. I've traveled in Asia, in Nepal, and India, and in North and South America, Central America. And it used to be easy to travel in Canada by Greyhound bus. There was a deal many years ago whereby you could just get one ticket, and as long as you kept going either east or west, whatever the choice was, you could just keep going in that direction. And yet for where he wanted to go. And we no longer have the Greyhound bus, and I think it's a terrible shame. And it's probably led to some ugly incidents on the road. And I'd like to point out that I was in Panama, and I'd gone someplace by bus, and then the next conveyance was even smaller, and the next one was even smaller, and the last conveyance to the town I wanted to go to was somebody's car.
Right down to the level.
And
Mary,
yeah.
thanks so much for the call. Go ahead, Justin.
It was remarkably easy in most places I went to find buses that linked me from big to small or what national parks. And then I would reflect on how difficult it is if you don't have a car. I didn't rent in a car this entire year traveling the world and was able to get everywhere that I needed. And you think if that is possible in Canada and BC. During this year, I was able to appreciate more of the things that are great about where I live, and I was able to reflect on places that maybe, just maybe, we don't quite line up with a lot of places in the world.
Let's go to our last call. Maria, you're on from New Westminster. What's your question for Justin?
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Justin, welcome back. I'm just curious. So I was sharing for myself. My parents migrated here from the Philippines in the late 60s, and so I had the chance to go to the Philippines in my 20s and stay there for longer. And I remember the first thing I felt there, being a brown person, short, was that I could blend in, which was something I felt really was a new feeling for me. So I'm curious for you as a white man, were you in any country, or do you remember any time where you felt you looked completely different from everyone else, and how did that make you feel?
Oh, for sure, right? There were plenty of countries where that happens, and oftentimes people are excited to see you, but sometimes you see pointing, and it makes you reflect on the shoe being on the other foot. But a story I like telling is when I went to India and I went to Amritsar, the center of the Sikh community in India, and I went to a sort of fair, and a bunch of kids came up to me and they said, where are you from? And they were excited to see someone that looked no one like them. And I said, from Canada. And they went, from Surrey. And it was pretty much the only place in the world outside of Canada where they would know that. And they wanted me to dance with them. And I only agreed to dance if they would take a selfie with me. So I have a lovely picture with 15 young teenagers from Amritsar. And luckily no footage exists of me dancing.
Justin McElroy, world traveler. It's great to have you back. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Dan.
And thank you for joining us on BC Today. Email us bctoday@cbc.ca.